I've been thinking about it for a long time, but now that the Minato manga is out, we have a more complete picture of what he's capable of. I can finally give him the analysis I've always wanted. I don't want to waste your time. Let's start with what he's best known for, which is his speed. And it is in this regard that Minato is the undisputed #1 in the anime, at least until you've met Otsutsuki's characters. Information about Minato's shinobi skills throughout the anime is rather contradictory and a bit difficult to interpret. But one thing we can be sure of is that every character who brought him up agrees that Minato is fast. And not just fast, he's one of the fastest shinobi to ever live in the world. In the databook and manga, it's stated many times that Minato is better at Hiraishin than Tobirama. And while I'm not going to say that this statement is conclusive, I don't think it means his teleportation is faster or anything like that. I don't think that's how this technique works. This teleportation should happen instantly for both of them, and neither of them seem to have encountered any delay in using this technique. But again, at one point Abrama says that his Hiraishin is too slow. Maybe there's some difference in speed between users depending on how strong they are, or how much chakra they have, or something like that. And maybe Minato is actually faster than Tobirama, but I think the mastery of Jutsu, which is emphasized in the anime, makes it better. Minato's seal is easier than the second Hokage's. He seems to have an easier time creating these seals. Though that's just an assumption based on the fact that he uses it more often than Tobirama. He's also able to do things that the founder of the technique simply isn't able to do, such as the barrier he uses to teleport Kurama's bomb and Tentail's bomb. Now Minato's status and reputation as a speed shinobi depends not only on his ability to use this jutsu, without it we couldn't have the nickname Yellow Lightning, but also bringing the basic techniques to a high level. Minato managed to save Naruto from Obito while on the edge of the room. From the way it was drawn, it looks like Obito didn't even notice what happened while Minato was already holding Naruto in his arms. He is also the first of the Hokage to arrive on the battlefield, despite the fact that there were no teleportation kunai nearby. The idea that he was only able to do this because of his high speed is supported almost immediately after it happens. Firstly, it's pointed out by Hiruzen, and secondly, Tobirama admits that his shunshin or bodily flicker is inferior to Minato's. So the reaction and fighting speed of the fourth is also close to Otsutsuki. He seems to always have good spatial perception, so he's able to act with astonishing accuracy. I want to point out, in a short period of time, he throws the kunai he's holding in his hand past Raikage, teleports to another kunai he threw at the start of the fight, returns to the kunai he just threw, then reacts to a surprise attack with his tentacles, chops them in half, and seals what's left. All of which he pulled off in a couple of moments. I'm not even sure it took more than 2 seconds of actual combat, but we can be sure that Raikage got faster in the 21 years between his fight with Minato and his fight with Naruto. The anime presents this as if it's trying to compare Naruto and Minato's speed. It's not just that Naruto didn't do anything out of the ordinary like Minato did, throwing his kunai and then teleporting back to him and all that stuff, but that Jonin was Minato even before he became Hokage. He is also the only person who has ever managed to outrun Kamui, due to his immense speed. Other people have managed to defeat Obito, such as Konan. However, she had been preparing since the moment they met. Kakashi was able to use Kamui to have Naruto try to hit him with some punches, but none of these people could move so fast that they couldn't react in time using Kamui. Minato is the only person in the series who was able to do this. The best demonstration of his reaction speed was after Guy opened the 8th gate and started fighting Madara. Minato teleported between them and took the good Adamas on himself, and managed to teleport away before Guy would crash into him. Theoretically he should be even faster using Kurama, but it's a little hard to tell if that's actually the case or if the form just gives him more chakra to work with. The reason I say this is because Minato spent almost all of his time in Kurama mode. When he first started using his 9-tailed chakra, it was meant to help the other 3 Hokage create a barrier that kept Kaibi trapped. He had originally left his real body there while his clone fought Obito. His clone was clearly weaker than his real body, and as I mentioned earlier, Tobirama said something about his clone moving slower than the original or something like that. But by the time his real body went into battle, he had learned that Obito was the masked man who had attacked the Leaf Village 17 years earlier, and it mentally devastated him. If you reread that fight, it's pretty clear that for a significant amount of time after it happened, Minato wasn't fully mentally prepared. Bookie's date even has a statement about this. It actually states that Naruto's quote brings Minato out of his stupor. With that kind of wording, I think it's pretty clear that the databook implies that Minato's mental state was so bad that it was affecting his ability to fight. The other Kurama seems to notice this in the middle of the fight. He's talking to Minato and said, "Hey dude, look, you need to relax because Kushina's death is Kobuta's doing, not your fault." Because of this, there are moments like when Tobirama saves Minato from an explosion set off by one of Obito's yearlings, despite Tobirama saying just a few chapters before that Minato is faster than him. Since I know there will be at least a few people who will try to point this out as proof that Tobirama isn't just faster than Minato, but stronger than him. Much faster than Minato. So much faster that when Minato uses the Tails Chakra mode, he's still faster. I'd also like to point out a couple of other things about what happened here that make it unfair. By comparison, not only was Minato's mind clouded in the Obito story, but the truth-seeking orb was attached to Minato's actual body. And just before this happened, Minato discovered that his mark on Obito was gone, so he couldn't teleport back to him. But before we get to the Force aspect, I'm going to ask you to subscribe and give me a like. Thank you. So, let's move on to the Force. Before the new Minato manga came out, we had no idea what his power was. But now that the chapter's out, we have a pretty big new announcement. As well as a pretty new feat. He's able to defeat the Kyuubi bomb with his Rasengan. It was an unequal battle. Or what you can see if you look closely is that Minato is actually advancing on Kurama, and Kurama is moving backwards. Keep in mind this was done by a teenage Minato long before he became the Jounin and consequently the Hokage. Of course, there are a few things I have to point out. For example, when Minato fought Kurama not incarnate but inside Kushina's seal, even though it was only an astral projection of Minato fighting a similar manifestation of Kurama inside Kushina. Naruto fought Kyuubi under the same circumstances, except here Minato is only fighting half Kurama. As for the chains, they also played a role when Naruto fought against Kurama. But there is something in the manga about Minato that makes us realize an interesting detail. These chains are used to restrain Umbu. And afterwards one of them says, the chains get stronger every year. But anyway, like I said, when he faced his Rasengan with his Biju bomb, he was injured, so he was probably at least a little weaker. To that I'd say that even if you're skeptical of the idea that Minato could actually create a Rasengan comparable to Biju's bomb because of astral projection and because his power was suppressed by Kushina, you have to admit that he at least had to be a lot stronger than Naruto. In addition, I'll remind you of Kurama's words. He compared his strength to Hashirama and said he was similar to the first Hokage. And that's pretty interesting. And this isn't just someone who has heard of Hashirama, he literally fought him and was captured by him. Towards the end I will say, Naruto admitted in one of the novellas that if his father were alive now, he would surpass him in strength. And that to me is surprising to hear from a guy who aspired to surpass all the Hokage. So I say, it's unfair to compare a character who was developing and who was already at his peak, because a notional Madara with 3 Raingans could have been a real threat. But that's for another time. Subscribe if you haven't already, and give it a like, and check out my other Naruto videos.